Thanks again to everybody who has joined us for today's episode of Fundraise Up Learning Lab. It's always a pleasure to get to come together to learn about some truly important topics. We have talked about a lot over the past few weeks that we've been hosting Fundraise Up Learning Lab. And we want to make sure that you are endowed with all of the tools, all of the skills, all of the knowledge to succeed as we head into year-end fundraising and Giving Tuesday. And so today's episode is hosted alongside our friends over at RKD Group, and we're talking about breaking through this year's digital noise to boost Giving Tuesday revenue. And this may be one of the most important Tuesdays to date. It's an election year, and we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and there's just so much coming through our feeds, whether it's on social media, emails, and as organizations, we have to find a way to cut through everybody else's messaging that's coming through. It might be Amazon with their Prime Day promotions, Target, everybody else is trying to get attention in your inbox, and we're going to talk about some ways that we can cut through that. If I haven't yet had the chance to meet you, my name is Nick Miller. I am our marketing director here at Fundraise Up. You can see my email here on the screen, as well as an invitation to connect with me on LinkedIn. I always love to stay in touch with our customers and others who attend our webinars. Love to see what you're doing with your organization, so please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you're not too familiar with what we do here at Fundraise Up, we've created the world's most advanced online donation experience. Without giving away too much, this magic is thanks to our focus on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science. It helps us create an incredible experience for you and your donors. And with that said, we're going to get started with today's presentation. And I'd like to give a very warm welcome to Jen Thompson, Vice President for Digital over at RKD Group.
Thanks, Nick. Happy to be here. I'm also excited to be here and optimistic about this. And I would love if people in the comments want to tell us how their organizations are doing. You know, when we get to the end of this, if there's other things beyond Giving Tuesday, we can, you know, cover or talk about. Happy to chat about anything that people need some help with. If you want to go to the next slide, a little bit about RKD Group. We've been around about 40 years, had a couple different names and the times that I've been there. But we've got 300 professionals who do, you know, marketing and fundraising for nonprofits. So everything from direct mail to emails to all things digital, online advertising, we sort of cover all of that. We've got 80 great digital professionals, you know, everybody from the media to creative to developers, and the folks that help make everything come together. Excited to work with all of them. I've been with RKD Group for 10 years this year, located in Dallas, and, you know, reach out if you have more on Giving Tuesday after this or anything else that we might be able to help with. So first, I want to talk about whether or not you should even bother participating in Giving Tuesday. I hear this every year from some organizations. You know, they're not sure if it's right for their group. And my answer is always yes, absolutely. So for our organizations, everything from 1 to 10% of their total giving that can happen in a year for them can come in on this one single day. Or if you make it more like a 2-week campaign over that time. But this is really critical. Giving Tuesdays come a long way in people knowing it. It's like Black Friday. It's like, you know, Cyber Monday. People understand this is a day to be charitable and you want to be part of that. Take a look at the next slide. I think it's showing just how much happens on Giving Tuesday. So last year, I think it was something like $511 million given on Giving Tuesday. For Giving Tuesday now, the new day that happened this past May, that was like 503 million. So even if your organization can just get a slice of that, that's going to be big for your missions of what you do. So why not, you know, take advantage of people being charitable and get in on that giving. take a look at the next slide. So, one critical way to boost your giving is ask for a little bit more on Giving Tuesday. At year end, and I would say Giving Tuesday, you should start this. Look at what you're normally asking for a donation. If your gift array is $25, $50, $75, $100, up that a little bit. People are more generous at year end. They're making those big year end gifts. Maybe they're $250 tax deductible donations, what they're doing. So ask for a little bit more. So increase your overall gift ask. If you put in an email message on Giving Tuesday, your gift of $50 will do this. That's normally what you would say. I would say try your gift of 60, your gift of 75, 250, whatever it is. But make sure everywhere you're asking, ask for a little bit more. People are feeling more generous, and you want to take advantage of that. 56% higher is what we see overall, but your organization, look at your data from past years, see what the increase was at year end, and then update your gift arrays according to that. And speaking of gift arrays, so, we do a lot with these. They're on the donation form, they're in emails. Take advantage of this opportunity and always have some kind of sustainer ask as part of it. Monthly giving, a lot of monthly giving, new gifts start at year end. So the more you can ask for it, that's more of a reminder to help people know that they can just do a little bit more to help your mission, your organization throughout the whole year. So on your gift array and email, you might have buttons that say different amounts. Put a little link right under that. You show the next one. Put a give monthly button right next to your give now buttons. Don't be afraid to just put that idea out there pretty prominently. And the last one is, in a PS message or in the copy, you can also make that reference to giving monthly. If you've got if you have a name to your program, so you're a humane hero or a monthly meal maker or some other great name, be sure to promote that so people start to feel like they want to be part of a group that does that. This is a big one. The cover the fee functionality. I know Fundraise Up lets you cover the processing fee. If you're not using this, turn it on. This can boost your giving. We've seen, we just released a blog post on this. I think it's like 1 to 2% boost just by enabling this and having it on. You can bring in a little bit more if you have it on by default, but super powerful in terms of engaging your donors. People want to support you, and they want their money to go as far as it can. So most people don't think about, the organization's got some credit card fees happening. It's a little reminder that that's there, and that every dollar they give, so that if they can give $2, $3, $4, $5 more, is going to help make sure that $100 gift or whatever it is goes all the way to helping the mission and not get caught up in other fees.
Jen, I have a question for you at this point, because we actually get this question about donors covering fees a lot from our customers and from prospective customers who are coming on board and come to the table with a little hesitancy about that. Should a nonprofit ever be afraid or shy of enabling this feature by default?
I don't think so. We have only ever had one organization that just said, our fundraising is doing so well, we're not worried about this. We've seen, I think it's upward of 75% of donors will do it and not think twice about it because they want their money to go as far as possible. So, and
Exactly.
normally it's not, it's $2, $3 more, $2 and change kind of thing. I have seen over the pandemic giving for some of our food banks that have this feature on their donation forms, a gift as high as $25,000 enabled this, because they knew that was, the credit card companies were going to take several $100s of that. And so they wanted to make sure the full 25,000 was going to go as far as possible. So I would say, if you're worried about it, maybe, you set your percentage a little lower, see how it goes. Most organizations we work with do somewhere between 3 and 4%. I think anything higher than that is probably getting a little crazy. But a lot of other giving platforms have it. Network for Good and some others out there. It's just there by default. So I don't think it's a problem with enabling this. And maybe you have a campaign, certain campaigns you wouldn't do it, but I would for Giving Tuesday, since that's just such a day where so much more giving is going to happen.
Absolutely. And here's a question that came in from one of our attendees. Have donors ever complained if fees are covered by default? Have you seen much activity there, Jen?
We have not seen that kind of complaint. And I think as long as it's always very clear and easy to disable, and that the system should be pretty clear on showing the donor what the amount is that's going to get processed. So if it's a a checkbox on or off, and in this example here for Fundraise Up, it shows you what the amount is and what the total is. If it's like you're checking it, but the donor still only saw that $100 that they picked at the top and don't know that now their gift is maybe $103, you could get complaints because you weren't very clear on that. So I think as long as the presentation of it is very smart, and the donor doesn't give the donor any reason to question what's happening. Like if they said, hey, I thought I only picked $100 and they didn't realize it was turned on, then you might get some complaints.
Sure. And I would mirror what you're saying there, Jen. Jane, thank you for this question. Here at Fundraise Up, this is, of course, a question that comes up a lot, especially when people are onboarding with the software. But what we've found in general is that there's very little friction with a donor wanting to show that additional support so that the organization, your organization, gets 100% of the donation.
Agreed. So how can you really, beyond that, get a little bit extra? And a lot of organizations, you might spend a lot of time, what are we going to ask for? What are we thinking about? But then they only plan to send, maybe an email the day before and one email on Giving Tuesday, and that's it. You really should be thinking about multiple emails for maximum success. The suggested schedule is something pre-Giving Tuesday to remind people that that's coming. You will get some people who give to that. But then on Giving Tuesday, you should at least be thinking early in the morning, somewhere around lunchtime, and then afternoon, early evening. And I would say if you have access to Google Analytics and you have things like e-commerce tracking turned on, or you're really tied into the times of day when giving happens, you might look at the schedule of, do people give around lunchtime? Well, let's make sure, we're targeting the right time. If gifts don't really start coming in until 7, 8, 9 a.m., don't do a 5 a.m. send. Try to time it when your giving is happening. We have one client that last year noticed, we were calling it like cocktail hour. They were getting some gifts around 9 p.m. at night. So our evening send, our PM send, was really usually around 5 or 6. And they asked if we could throw in one more email to cover that sort of, people at parties or cocktail hour or whatever's happening. So we do that for a lot now. We look at their hourly giving and when things are happening, what the patterns are, and adjusting their schedules to match up with that.
Jen, I really like that you've included this suggested schedule that is not just saying send an email the day before and then send one on Giving Tuesday and then send one the next day. We're talking about multiple opportunities for people to show their support during Giving Tuesday. And as you've just identified, donors will show their behavior when they prefer to give. And so again, if you see that uptick in the late afternoon, early evening, and even at 9 p.m., take that into account as you create your email campaigns so you can meet your donors where they are.
Yeah, and you may have something about your organization where you could time your asks related to that. So
Yes.
we have some on giving days that do, it's the morning one is, here's the time we're feeding the animals for the day for the animal shelter. And it's lunchtime, you're probably thinking about lunch. We're thinking about, the dinner schedule. And so they're pulling in that messaging into it too, to make it feel a little bit more relatable to people in giving. So, think about that as well in terms of messaging. And one last point on this, if you're doing 4, 5, 6 emails, depending on what your schedule is, you don't have to email everyone all the time. Somebody might look at this and say, I'm not sending, everybody on the file 5 messages, 4 messages. Major donors maybe shouldn't get all of them. Pick 1 or 2 key times where you're going to reach out to those folks. As people start to donate, you should pull them out of the file so that they're not getting asked 4 or 5 times if they've already donated. So think about the schedule and then the segments and who you're going to pull out. Some organizations want us to pull out the people who opened the morning email. Some people let us leave those in. There's a chance, maybe they were busy in the morning and they couldn't respond then, but they would in the afternoon email. So, you have to have a sense of what your file will do. But I will say, think about segmentation as well as what you're planning to schedule.
Yes, that is the power of segmentation, is making sure that donors who have seen it and given are not being asked the same as somebody who hasn't seen it and hasn't given yet. And most email platforms and donor CRMs are capable of showing you those statistics. So if you're not leveraging them today, this is the opportunity.
Yeah, and Giving Tuesday is really the start of just crazy number of emails you're going to probably be sending out of an organization. I think maybe food banks
Yes.
for us are a little ahead of that with Thanksgiving, but you really, if this is the beginning and then you're going to get in December and you're emailing every week or multiple times a week, you really want to think about segmentation overall, not just on Giving Tuesday, but for the whole year end. So, as you're thinking about sending all these emails and communications, how are you going to stand out a little bit? And I opened up my email inbox from Giving Tuesday last year and just sort of glanced at the subject lines. And if it had an emoji, if it had, Giving Tuesday in all caps or urgent, or, if you have a matching gift campaign, I really recommend you should have some reference to that in the subject line. Everybody on your file is probably going to get emails from other organizations on Giving Tuesday. And if they're talking about a match and you don't have a match, or you don't mention the match in your subject line, then they might not open your email and they might pick the one that says might get this match, double match, triple match today. So think about those things to try to, get a little ahead of people with their email. Social, I would say, be engaging, look for fun, or sad, heartbreaking pictures if that's what your organization does. Just imagine it's in your Facebook feed. What's the thing that would get you to stop and look at this ask and think about making a donation? And then mid-major donors and your board, you might enlist them ahead of time to go out and encourage people to look for their emails that day, or start telling their friends that Giving Tuesday is coming up. Maybe you draft some messaging for them to help reach out to their group of friends that they can try to pull in for you that day. Countdown timers. We've found that these are a great way to just really hit people up with that urgency and that deadline that comes with Giving Tuesday. So we put these in light boxes, we put them on donation forms, we put them in emails. It's all great places to use it, but it's a really nice way to just remind people time is running out to get your gift in on this day, or especially if you have a match, that you want to get your gift in while it still be matched. And then, use every channel that you have available to you in your digital universe. And maybe not everybody's, you're not using TikTok yet for your organization, but you probably have Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And, if you're doing text messaging in your email, that's sort of your known universe and your regular ways that you would communicate with people. Then you've also got advertising that's going to help with acquisition and get to you to people you don't even know who might want to help you. Nick, if you just click on the next thing there.
Sure thing.
You want to get in front of as many people. So I would just, a little note about media. Everyone thinks about, I'll do a Facebook post. I'll do a boost later in the day. Facebook and display ads, a lot of those networks will help you take a list of your emails or your donor emails and find more people like them. So it's a great opportunity to find lookalikes and people who might also donate to me. So I would say if you've got a budget for doing some advertising, you might want to think about, taking what you would normally spend in a month and taking at least half of that for just Giving Tuesday. You want to add a little bit more that day. Everybody, all the other organizations you're going to be competing with ad space for, but it's a great opportunity to really try to get to new people as well as the people you already know.
I really like the full representation of channels here. We recognize traditional ones like email and the website, but then there are ones that are newer to some of our audience members, like sending a text message. But more than anything, I'm looking at this list of social media icons, and I see TikTok on there. And I won't lie, even I, as a millennial, still don't fully understand what TikTok is. And the point is, you can still find ways to reach your donors through channels that maybe you don't quite yet understand. And each one can serve a purpose. You don't have to be pushing out the same message across all channels. In fact, Jen, maybe you'll agree with this. You shouldn't push out the same message on all of these channels in the same way, at least, because different audiences are going to expect content that fits the platform. And so what works on Instagram might need to be different from what you have on TikTok, for example, but they're all worth investing in, all worth learning about, and all worth leveraging, especially here at year end.
Agreed. And I would say, maybe it doesn't have to be you, the organization. If you've got, a volunteer or somebody who works at the organization who, is really into TikTok and learns all the dances and, has an idea, sit down with them and talk about how they might be able to, take their idea and help promote your organization on Giving Tuesday. Or maybe you can come up with some messaging and things and ask your volunteers and followers, to all post it so that all of their friends and followers see it on Giving Tuesday. So it doesn't always have to be things that you're particularly doing or just things that your organization posts. Pull in everybody who can help get the word out on that day. So another question we get asked a lot, Facebook often offers a match, which I think you'd never hear about until a few days before Giving Tuesday. Should your organization promote this match in your appeals? The reality is, everybody gets excited. This match runs out in like minutes. And it's mostly, I hear complaints that it was just the East Coast organizations, because that's all who's awake, that got to take advantage of it. If you want to mention it, go for it. You're probably not going to get much revenue from it. I've never heard anyone say this was like the most successful thing. I'm so glad we took advantage of the Facebook match. That said, it is out there. It may motivate someone. If you don't already have a match, just be prepared that it's going to be a lot easier on the East Coast than it will be on the West Coast. And you might try to time it with your first email send for when that match starts. Again, I don't know if Facebook's doing it this year. I just know, we tend not to hear about it until maybe a week or two leading up to Giving Tuesday. And one last thing I want to share with everyone is if you're coming up with a campaign, if you haven't gotten that far yet, hopefully everybody has, because if you've got creative resources and tech resources, they're all trying to get everything you need built and designed for year end. But if you don't have a campaign yet, here's a look at a food bank that we work with that for the past few years we try to figure out, what are we going to ask for? What's the goal? Will we have a match? What is it? And so in 2016, they needed a $50,000 commercial kitchen stove. And so we did a whole campaign. There was no match available, but we needed to raise money for this stove. And that brought in about $41,000 on Giving Tuesday. The next year, we didn't really have a goal, but we did have a triple match. So every dollar given was matched with $2. That raised almost twice as much as just having the goal. The next year we had a goal but a smaller match. That did about the same as the triple match with no goal. So you can see, every year it got a little different. We tried to build on the next one. And last year we had a goal, but we also did a 4 times match. So every dollar donated was matched with $3. And that just blew everything out of the water. That was double the goal and the double match and the no goal and the triple match. So definitely higher matches, more match money will bring in more gifts. But I also recommend pairing it with a goal so that people feel like they know what their gift is going to contribute to.
Absolutely. And
You
oh,
know,
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt
I
there.
was going to say it's hard sometimes to come up with, maybe your organization is the kind that has something like a stove. We've done a lot. We've worked with a lot of different types of organizations. So, shoot me an email, jthompson@rkdgroup.com, and I can try to give you suggestions of what other people have done. Or look at something, is on your plan for next year that you're going to have to fundraise for, and maybe think about, okay, how can we turn that into a goal? Maybe you need a truck or another piece of equipment, something you normally would only ask a major donor to help contribute to. That might be another way to get at what a goal could be.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to agree with. And that's something that I'm noticing across this set of emails here are the powerful and tangible visuals that are used. And those can be incredibly compelling ways to invite your audience in to make a gift. So for example, with the stove is not just talked about, you can see it. You can almost maybe imagine it in the space where it will be used. And you have that really nice goal meter sitting next to it to show, the progress toward the goal. Similarly, in the 2018 campaign, you have those really awesome truck graphics, and you can see as the money is raised, those trucks start to move from being transparent to opaque. And that can be, again, an incredibly awesome way to engage your audience with the act of giving. We have talked a lot about how we can make this Giving Tuesday work for your organization, and whether it's leveraging social media channels, honing in your email sending to your donors. There's a lot of ways that we can come to the table this year to raise more money than ever. We always want to make sure that there's plenty of time for questions. And so as we are here at about 1:30, we want to make sure that you can ask these questions. We're here with the experts from RKD Group. And so as you're looking at your fundraising strategy, and maybe there's some question areas or ways that you are seeking to improve your strategy, this is the perfect time to ask them. So please feel free to drop them into the chat here. Jen, I see we already have a great question from Jamie. How do you get double matching?
So we've seen some of our clients do really interesting things to get match money. You definitely want to make sure you have a donor who's providing the money for your match. And you should be very clear on if they're only going to match $5,000, $50,000, whatever it is, that's outlined so that you don't get a donor who calls up later and demands to know how their gift was matched. You should always have that listed out. If you've never asked somebody to be a matching donor, you might look at an organization that already provides funding to you. So maybe you've got, a local company that you work with that makes a gift every year. You could go to them and say, are you willing to let us use this money to raise even more money? That's a great opportunity to provide a little extra benefit for your local partners. You can put their logo or their name in your e-appeals. You can put it on the lightbox, on the donation form, gift match provided by. You've got their logo right there. That might be a great benefit for that company. The other thing that a lot of our partners do is they might know that, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson always give $10,000 every December. go to them ahead of time and say, you've been such a great donor. Are you willing to let us use that gift that you normally make at the end of December as a match on Giving Tuesday? A lot of donors are very interested in making a gift that they know can help bring in more money. So that's always a great way to try to get a little bit more out of a donor. You might also look at somebody who's given earlier in the year a nice size gift and ask them if they'd be willing to give again so that you can offer a match.
Fantastic. Just seeing another question pop in here right now that has to do with messaging. And our attendee is sharing that their donations are down dramatically, and there's an assumption that it's due to the pandemic. And so they're asking, is it a good idea to mention the unknowns of the year in their messaging, or should they just ignore the pandemic in their messaging?
I think that matters a little bit to what your mission is. And I think if you can, connect donors and prospects with why gifts matter so much more this year, definitely worth mentioning the pandemic. We've also seen clients who've, been very clear with their appeals that gifts are down and they still need donors to do whatever their mission is. So I would say, definitely include that. It's a little harder if your mission, your organization's mission, isn't impacted by the pandemic. So if we work with a lot of food banks and animal shelters. The food banks are just, the need right now is so huge for them that it's easy to explain if everybody sees on the local news that, cars lined up at the food bank. Animal shelters, there's a lot of, even though we can't have people walking through the shelter right now, we have all these animals that still need to be fed and, cared for kind of message, and that's easy. It's not as easy for a lot of other organizations. So you might have to be creative in how you do that, but I do think it's not wrong to mention that giving's down and your help is still needed.
Absolutely. And Jen, as you mentioned, it's important to contextualize your organization within the impact of the pandemic, because I think at this point, a majority of people are tired of getting an email that says these are uncertain times and we're all in this together, because it just starts to become that noise that today we're talking about breaking through. So if you can be clear with your donors about how your organization and your mission has been impacted by the pandemic, and maybe lay out, bullet point 1, 2, and 3, here's what we need and why, I think that can be much more compelling than just saying, oh, and by the way, the pandemic is on and we're affected a little bit. Show them, tell them, and be able to describe how their support will have an impact.
Agreed.
Yeah. Let's see, another great question in here. Looks like it's asking about current donors moving their donation to Giving Tuesday. Let's see, I'm not sure I'm fully understanding the question, but maybe it's asking about a donor, maybe they have a recurring gift already set up and then they transfer it over to the Giving Tuesday campaign. I'm not quite sure. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind restating that question again, it might help me better make sense of it. But there's a second part in there about added fees that I think is also worth looking at. And let me see if I can switch us back to, let's see, this slide. And so these are a couple of screenshots from the Fundraise Up platform specifically. So I can speak to it really well in this context. If you're not asking your donors to cover fees, if you're not providing them that opportunity on these days of high giving, such as Giving Tuesday and December 31st, you can actually end up with this substantial lump of processing fees. And so this is a great opportunity to have this box checked by default, because especially if we're thinking back to the previous question about how do we get more support and how do we use the pandemic to craft better messaging when our donations are down. Well, one way to make sure that you're getting the maximum impact from your donors' gifts is to allow them to cover those processing fees. And what we've done with our approach to this feature is to place it front and center and to say, because we recognize, we've done studies on this, that a majority of your donors do want to cover these fees. They want to show full support. They want to make sure that you get every dollar of their donation. And so we've crafted it in a way that's most likely to get your supporters to show that type of support. And that's why we get a really great number, 92% on average of all donors opting to cover those fees. And what we've done with our approach and what can be so beneficial here at year end is that when the donor is covering the fee, they're not just covering the payment processing fee, the credit card processing fee. With Fundraise Up, they're also covering the platform fee. And why this is so big for our customers is that that means that in that moment, it's a free transaction. The platform gets to be used by the nonprofit organization for free. And again, as we look at this Giving Tuesday in particular, I think it's probably more important than ever.
Yeah, and I would say, cover the fee is something I would recommend is on all the time. I don't think it's just something you should turn on just for Giving Tuesday. If
Yes.
I wasn't clear about that before. And I would say, if you don't normally use it, try it out now and see what the response is. Like, I'm not sure I would just turn it on Giving Tuesday and then, if you're going to get a complaint, somebody might say, why did you just turn this on today? You might test into it a little bit, but I don't think you will get, tons of complaints. I just think it definitely shouldn't look like to your donors that you only turned it on one day and then it's not on the next kind of thing.
Absolutely. If this is not a feature that you're already using today, then maybe this week you can soft launch it on your normal donation page, because absolutely the last thing you want to do is flip the switch on this feature and all of your existing donors go to make their gift and they encounter something brand new to them that maybe you haven't been doing before. So using this opportunity ahead of Giving Tuesday to start to build it into your workflow can be really helpful so that when Giving Tuesday does roll around, it's not coming as a surprise.
Agreed.
Tracy, thank you for putting your question back in here. I think I understand it a little bit better, and I think maybe we may have helped answer a little bit. Tracy is wondering about, a donor who just moves their one-time gift, let's say, to Giving Tuesday instead of giving at a different point of the year, and having some thoughts about, those additional fees that they see. And again, hopefully you're already allowing your donors the opportunity to cover the fees. If you're not, this is again a great opportunity to do it now, because that's how you can offset these fees that you might otherwise be seeing. Let's see, I see there's a comment in here from Ben. Give me just one moment to read it here.
While you look at that, I was just going to talk about for Giving Tuesday. I'd also recommend you look at the people who maybe you normally suppress from your regular asks, and maybe sustainers are one of those that you just think, well, they're already giving a monthly gift. I won't ask them again. Giving Tuesday is a good day to include them in the mix. Just because they give 12 gifts a year doesn't mean they can't give 13. They might be more likely to give again. So at some point in year end, I would hope you would add sustainers back into the mix, either December 31st, which is also another huge giving day, or Giving Tuesday. But I would say, if you're worried about, well, sometimes I ask this and sometimes I don't. Sustainers are one of those groups that people think, well, I've already got them. I promised them I wouldn't ask again. Unless you have some very clear, I'm never going to ask you for another gift messaging, it's okay to put them into the mix on Giving Tuesday, because it is a day designed to support the organizations that you care about.
Exactly. And for those of you who are in the audience having a fear about this idea of the donor covering the processing fees, Ben has hopped into the chat here with some reassurance. Ben says, we've been using the ability to cover processing fees for a year now and never gotten any pushback. People who are concerned about the fees are either sending a check or choose to give through their bank account for a smaller processing fee, or they just uncheck the box and don't cover the fees. And I would say that's what we see here as well. There's not a significant amount of people who push back against the feature because in most cases, you're not forcing them into the act of covering those processing fees. You're giving them the option. Again, in our case, 92% of the donors are opting to go ahead and cover that. And that brings up another important point that we have discovered through so many conversations with our nonprofit customers. And it's that you shouldn't let one email or one phone call from one donor who pushes back cause you to change your entire fundraising strategy. If one person calls and says, why are you asking me to cover the processing fees? That, it seems immoral or unethical, or however they decide to craft it. Don't let that spook you. Don't let that force you to disable that option, because again, truly a majority of your donors want to show their full support by covering those fees.
Yeah, it's I mean, if you had, a lot of people asking the same question, then you should definitely look at, how something's presented or how you're asking for it. But when it's just those one-offs that, my board member, had this, we'll explain to the board member why you do it, why you're using it. Maybe, estimate out what your cost would be for those fees, and then say, are you sure you don't want me to try to cover this, because now we have to make sure we bring this in somewhere. So educating those donors is always a good plan as well. And don't, it's hard for us when we work with so many organizations and they get that one email, that one call from a donor. Why did I get this email? Why did you do this? Why is this on there? If it's legit broken, please tell us. If it's one donor who just didn't like the message, I can tell you, you just got 200 donors who did make a donation.
Exactly.
So you kind of have to balance out the feedback that you get in and do your best to educate that person first before you jump to we got to make a change.
Exactly. There's something else I wanted to revisit. You mentioned this a little earlier, Chen, about the frequency at which we ask people for gifts and how often. And you said if they give 12 gifts, why not ask them for that 13th? And that's something we encounter a lot with our customers as well. As there's this hesitancy to ask again. There's a fear that one more email, one more direct mail appeal that you send out will cause the donor to leave you forever. But I can reassure you, all of you here in the audience, that that's generally not the case. That's not what we've seen from our customers and their donor bases. Most people want to have that opportunity to give. And for example, I'll use myself as an example. I might get 5 emails from a nonprofit that I love and cherish asking me to support, and it doesn't bother me because I care about them. I care about their mission, and I might just be busy when they send that first email, that second email. I might be out at dinner when they send the 4th email, but when that 5th one comes through, I might be in the right place to make that gift. And so don't be afraid to ask, because especially with the pandemic contextualized for us, your donors absolutely want to show support.
Absolutely. And I would also say, I didn't have it on the list, but a thank you message is also highly recommended as well. We do this every year for a lot of organizations. Yes, we're going to send out a thank you, especially if they had a big goal or a big ask and they're getting a huge response. A thank you message is great, but then the question is, do you send it to everyone? Do you just send it to the donors? And I always recommend, if you're going to send it to everyone, which is my general recommendation, send it to everyone, but include if you didn't have a chance to give, you can still support, helping to fund the stove or whatever the goal was. Maybe the gifts aren't matched after that, but you don't really have to mention that. But at least, we've seen donors who couldn't give that day or weren't checking their email on Giving Tuesday who will go on and give to a thank you message. So those are fantastic. And, some include videos, little video clips that you can click to watch. But a thank you message is highly recommended as well. I mean, you spent all this time and you sent out, 5 or 6 emails to people, or put asks on all of your social, put thank yous on all of those places as well.
Absolutely, and that is another important point and a great takeaway that that we can leave our audience with. Giving Tuesday it's a day of giving, but the giving doesn't have to stop at the end of 24 hours. And that thank you email is a perfect example of that, where the day of giving may have concluded, but you can still provide donors with an opportunity to give, which I think is really important. And there's one additional thing that I wanted to make sure we could revisit, and that's about segmentation. And I had to bring us back here because I'm a segmentation junkie. I think it's so important for us to understand the donors who are in our file. And there's so many different ways that you can cross-cut that list and how you can break it down. And this is why I'll always say data is king. And the more of it you have, as long as it's good quality, the better decisions you can make. And so whether you need to break it down by give, didn't give, or age, or some other demographic, having that segmentation in your toolkit is incredibly important. And so, for example, let's look at those social media channels again. You might be able to segment your list so that you send a TikTok appeal to all of your Gen Z and millennial donors, and then maybe for some of your other donors, you send them an email. But it's a really important way of segmenting out your audience so that you're asking the right people for the right amounts and saying thank you in the right way. And I also want to plug, on behalf of all of your CRMs out there, their ability to do excellent reporting for you. And if you don't already know how to leverage those reporting tools within your CRM, I highly recommend picking up the phone or sitting down at your computer to write an email to your account rep at your CRM vendor, because this type of reporting is key to achieving the type of segmentation that Jen has talked about and that we're kind of reviewing right now as well.
Yeah, I would
With
also throw in
Oh, go
the
ahead, Jen.
if your email file, you feel like your open rates have been going down all year, just let people seem less engaged. Giving Tuesday might be the right time to, if your CRM will let you do it, find the people who haven't opened anything in a year. Don't email them, or only include them in the morning email, not the evening, or just send them the late afternoon email. Um, those people might be dragging down the file, and they're essentially dead weight, and maybe they're the reason why half of the people on your list from Yahoo aren't getting your email. So think about engagement and look for ways that you can pull the people out who just aren't responding, aren't opening anything. Either send them less or don't send to them at all. One that might show you, hey, our open rates really double or 50% increase of what we've been seeing. And it's time for those people to go. And if you do have a particularly large email file, you might have some real cost savings by archiving or kicking out, that 50% that's just totally dead weight and not worth emailing. Those lists and your opt-out lists are another group that, you can't email them, but you can show them ads. You could, import them into Facebook and use them as an ad list. So your opt-outs, you can still repurpose in some ways, but the people who are fully unengaged and aren't opening anything in 8 months, 12 months or more, it's definitely time to rethink them.
Absolutely. And I'll add on, there could be some even more serious ramifications there. If you continue to send to contacts that are not deliverable or have marked you as spam, you run the risk of starting to lower your email sending reputation as an organization. And as your reputation is lowered, that means that there's a greater chance that your emails, your important emails to your donors, will automatically get kicked over to that spam folder. And that's not what you want to have happen. So absolutely look at that list and remove those old contacts, the bad contacts, people who haven't opened your emails, haven't responded, so that you have a really healthy list with a strong sending reputation.
Agreed.
Yes. With that in mind, I think we have the opportunity to wrap up a little early today. Jen, any other insights you'd like to share with our Learning Lab attendees today?
No, I hope this was helpful to everyone, and everyone's still optimistic and excited for Giving Tuesday. and you learned at least one thing that you're going to try in your program this year, let Nick know, let me know. Hopefully this is everybody getting just a little boost. I really cover the fee, great. Increasing that average gift. Those are my two big takeaways from this. If you do anything, those I think can be the things that for sure should bring in a little bit more money.
Absolutely. And I'm really, really, really excited to see where we all are post December. And we can come back to the table and share our success stories and maybe some of the pain points we ran into as well. But please know that over here at Fundraise Up and over at RKD Group, we are rooting for you and your successful year-end push. And on behalf of all of us here at Fundraise Up, thank you so much for joining us for Fundraise Up Learning Lab. All right, well, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. It is a lovely Wednesday, and we'll see you next time. Jen, thanks so much for joining us for today's episode and rooting for you and all of your clients.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, take care, everyone.